Ever dreamed of visiting Antarctica, but worried if expedition cruising is right for you? Well, we spent 9 nights on Atlas Ocean Voyages on an Antarctic expedition, and the reality might surprise you. So today, we're sharing what no one tells you about visiting Antarctica. From the breathtaking moments to the challenges, we cover it all up next. Welcome aboard, cruisers. I'm Don B from Eat, Sleep, Cruise. And even though we've been on over 90 ocean cruises, when we told friends we were taking an Antarctica cruise, they thought we were crazy. Would we survive the Drake Passage? What is there to actually do and see in Antarctica? And at some level, we had some of the same concerns, but that's actually part of the problem. One of the biggest mistakes travelers make isn't about packing or not being prepared for potential seasickness. It's approaching an Antarctica expedition just like any other cruise, because it's not. An expedition to Antarctica requires a complete mind shift. It isn't about poolside lounging, casino nights, or Broadway style shows. Instead, it's about embracing the unexpected and living in the moment. This took some adjusting for us megaship enthusiasts. On our second day at sea, we experienced some of the roughest possible conditions in the Drake Passage, with 10+ meter swells. It was difficult to walk a straight line, and all the outdoor decks were closed. Thankfully, we didn't experience seasickness ourselves, but most of our fellow passengers and a good number of the crew were down for the count. But that's when it really started to sink in for us. We weren't simply checking another destination off our bucket list. We were merely visitors heading to this pristine white continent playing by nature's rules. From that point, we started to look at the journey differently. Instead of stressing about the schedule, we just enjoyed whatever Antarctica decided to show us that day. So whether it was penguins, icebergs, or watching the snowfall from the lounge, it was all part of the adventure. It's important to know ahead of time that you're not booking a vacation. Instead, you're joining an expedition. Your itinerary? Think of it more like a suggestion rather than a schedule. Those shore landings, they might happen, they might not. The perfect penguin photo you've been dreaming about? Well, nature doesn't always cooperate with your Instagram plans. When our captain announced, "We've arrived at Tower Island, but you can't see it," due to a sudden snow squall, I laughed instead of getting disappointed. In the end, we still got to do and see a lot during our voyage, but it wasn't on our terms. It was all guided by the ever-changing weather and sea conditions. If you're considering an Antarctica expedition, it's also important to know the cruise line you choose makes a huge difference. We sailed with Atlas Ocean Voyages, and a few things really stood out to us. First, ship size matters. Our expedition ship, World Voyager, carried just 144 passengers. This meant passengers went ashore in a few waves, as Antarctica has strict rules, only allowing 100 people ashore at a time. So if you're on one of the larger ships in the region with 200 or 300 passengers, you'll need to wait your turn and may get less total time ashore. Or your chances of a Zodiac cruise scouting for wildlife may lessen as weather conditions worsen. Now, this isn't even taking into account larger ocean ships that claim to visit Antarctica. Actually, those larger ships merely sail in the region, and you have no potential to get off the ship and explore, so there's no landings or Zodiac rides. Second, we were surprised by how many amenities Atlas packs into its yachts. Some expedition ships in Antarctica are retrofitted research vessels with questionable accommodations. However, that's not the case with Atlas Ocean Voyages staterooms. In fact, our beautiful 270 square foot Horizon stateroom boasted a drop-down window, a comfy queen bed, and a bathroom with a rainfall shower. Similar to ocean ships, our Atlas Ocean Voyages ship had a main dining room, a coffee shop, a spa, a fitness center, and a couple of bars and lounges as well. The food was surprisingly good too. The Wagyu burger and french fries from the free 24/7 room service were irresistible. In the main dining room, the roasted rack of lamb and the Portuguese sausage and cheese tart were additional highlights. One night, Heidi couldn't find a chicken dish or an alternative menu item she liked. So the chef made a custom dish for her. That's a personalized service you get with a luxury cruise line, and we were surprised to see such attention to detail on an Antarctica expedition ship. Further, the all-inclusive nature of the Atlas Ocean Voyages made things super simple. Our fare included charter flights from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia, a pre-cruise hotel night in Buenos Aires, all shore landings and Zodiac rides, all the food and drinks, including the good stuff like premium wines and spirits. Even emergency evacuation insurance was also included. But honestly, it was the expedition team that made the big difference. They weren't just tour guides or shore excursion staff members. Instead, they were passionate experts and genuinely enthusiastic about sharing their knowledge. The team was led by Jean-Roch, an experienced expedition leader who coordinated the 13-member team with impressive calm and adaptability. When weather conditions changed rapidly, Jean-Roch and the captain would quickly come up with alternative plans. The team always focused on maximizing our experience while prioritizing our safety. The daily briefings not only prepared us for what to expect, but also helped us understand the why behind any itinerary changes. The expedition staff was an eclectic mix of biologists, naturalists, and outdoor adventure specialists. They were an international team hailing from the US, Canada, Argentina, Norway, and other countries. Whether we were trekking along the coastline or just wandering around the ship, they were always approachable and friendly. They gave insightful lectures in the ship's auditorium on everything from Antarctica wildlife and geography to a really interesting talk on the history and geopolitics of the continent. These educational talks significantly enhanced our appreciation of what we were seeing. You've probably heard that the Drake Passage is one of the roughest stretches of water in the world. And honestly, that's not an exaggeration. We crossed with 10 to 12 meter swells. That's 30 to 40 feet waves for our fellow Americans. What does that actually feel like? Well, during our crossing, it wouldn't be a stretch to say we were bouncing off the hallway walls. As we mentioned earlier, thankfully we didn't experience any seasickness, but many others did. It really dawned on us after dinner when we went to the two lounges and found them both empty. Apparently, we were the only ones in good enough condition for a nightcap. Yet, you shouldn't let the possibility of rough seas stop you from taking an Antarctica expedition. The conditions when crossing the Drake are really a roll of the dice. Thus, it is possible you'll experience what cruisers call the Drake Lake, which is relatively calm waters, or what we experience with rough seas, the Drake Shake. In fact, on our way back, the seas were much calmer. The conditions were also sunny and clear, making our return trip back to Ushuaia a pleasant one. Still, if you're planning this cruise, it's worth discussing options with your doctor beforehand, even if you don't normally experience motion sickness. Even when you make it through the Drake Passage, there's still weather unpredictability dictating your course. Out of our planned 8 stops on our Antarctica expedition, which included a mix of shore landings and Zodiac rides, we only successfully made 5. In fact, our itinerary even listed most days as captain's choice rather than specific locations, acknowledging from the start that Mother Nature makes the final decisions. The weather in Antarctica can change dramatically in minutes. For instance, one day we experienced relatively mild 30-degree temperatures and sunshine at Deception Island, allowing us to complete 2 successful landings. But the very next day, we encountered rapidly worsening conditions, with snow accumulating several inches in just a few hours, completely transforming the landscape and making landings impossible. There were days where we were all geared up in our waterproof pants and layers, and at the last minute, our landings had to be canceled. Sometimes it was high winds that made Zodiac operations unsafe. Other times, sea ice blocked access to landing sites. Occasionally, it was simply poor visibility restricting our operations. Yet the captain kept trying to find us sheltered bays where we could safely operate the Zodiacs. So it shouldn't be surprising that the expedition team's constant phrase became "flexibility is mandatory," which should really be the motto for any traveler taking an Antarctica expedition. The physical demands of an Antarctic expedition are another reality check. Every shore landing involves climbing down a gangway, stepping into a bobbing Zodiac boat, making a wet landing. Yes, this means wading through freezing water with the appropriate gear, and then hiking across uneven, often slippery terrain. If you have significant mobility issues, this could be challenging. However, in our experience, these demands are manageable for most people in reasonable physical condition. At Pendulum Cove on Deception Island, the path up to the viewpoint was rather steep and slippery, but the effort was totally worth it. The great thing about these landings is that they typically accommodate various fitness levels. For example, at Danko Island, some passengers hiked up for panoramic views, while others enjoyed the amazing penguin watching along the flatter areas. Given the regulations in Antarctica, guests are not allowed to wander on their own. Everyone has to stay within clearly marked areas. During these outings, the expedition team were always on hand to guide you, provide information, lend a hand if you were struggling with the terrain, or just take your photo. However, being honest about your physical limitations will help you set the right expectations once ashore. Some expedition cruise lines are more adventure-driven and maybe more physically demanding, but we found Atlas to be the perfect mix for us. Though all the uncertainties and ever-changing conditions, there were so many breathtaking moments it was unlike anything else we had ever experienced. All those difficulties quickly fade away when you have your first truly unforgettable Antarctica moment. For us, it happened at Whalers Bay on Deception Island. As soon as we stepped ashore on this black volcanic beach, we immediately spotted Gen 2 penguins going about their day as if we weren't even there. Then they approached us, being just as inquisitive and interested in us as we were in them. The genuine connection with wildlife and its natural habitat you get in Antarctica is something you can't experience in a zoo or sanctuary. After missing a few planned landings due to weather, we finally woke up to relatively calm conditions. We were able to go ashore to Danko Island on the final day. The island had this massive rookery of penguins, with hundreds of them making their way up and down the snowy hillside. The same afternoon, we made our final attempt to reach Orne Harbor for a continental landing. When we arrived, the expedition team found a large ice field blocking easy access to the shore. Instead of canceling, they offered to take us on one last Zodiac ride that would still allow us to touch the continent. During this memorable excursion, we spotted a leopard seal lounging on an ice floe. Soon after we approached, it slid into the water with surprising grace for such a large animal. As our journey continued, our Zodiac captain navigated us through the partially frozen waters, slicing between massive icebergs. We finally did get to touch the continent, and while we've been to some pretty amazing places, Antarctica makes you feel small in the best possible way. To cap off this final day, the expedition team found an ideal spot for the Polar Plunge, an Antarctica rite of passage. While I joined in, Heidi volunteered to take photos instead. Jumping into icy water was both terrifying and exhilarating, and was the perfect way to end our unforgettable journey. So just exactly who should take an Antarctica expedition? Well, it's perfect for nature and wildlife lovers, people who appreciate both adventure and comfort, photographers, history buffs, and those interested in exploration and discovery, and those who rather have a unique experience than another day at the beach. While Heidi and I consider ourselves pretty traditional cruisers, Atlas Ocean Voyages wasn't too far out of our comfort zone. It struck the perfect balance between expedition and luxury cruising. However, this type of cruise really isn't for everyone. You should probably reconsider if you're prone to motion sickness and really concerned about the Drake Passage. You have mobility issues that would make Zodiac operations and uneven terrain difficult. You're working with a limited travel budget. You prefer tropical climates or places with more infrastructure. And you definitely shouldn't go if you get frustrated when plans change due to circumstances beyond your control. Antarctica isn't just a place you visit. It's a place that changes how you see the planet and yourself. It strips away distraction and reconnects you with what matters. What no one tells you about Antarctica expedition cruising is that the challenges become part of the experience, part of what makes it special. This isn't about having the perfect trip. It's about embracing an adventure that few will ever experience. Still not convinced that an Antarctica cruise is right for you? Well, right here on YouTube, we have our detailed Antarctica expedition cruise review, where we cover everything and detail the entire 9-night trip. From the ship and onboard experiences, the enrichment and edutainment, staterooms, dining, with complete breakdowns of every single outing. We cover it all, that way you're one step ahead of everyone else on board, and your Antarctica cruise will be smooth sailing.